Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and this is StudyIQ IS. Now on 1st of February every year, the Union Finance Minister presents the annual financial statement, more popularly known as the budget. And this budget, it covers everything and provides you with detailed information regarding expected revenue and planned expenditures. And this expenditures and revenue, it covers everything from defense to infrastructure, from healthcare to education. And this event of annual presentation of budget is very popular as far as Indian economy and Indian polity is concerned, and it should be so. Because budget, it provides you with various information and it changes the way how the government is going to tax its citizens, and hence it will impact our disposable income in the years to come. And it also provides the sustainability of government finances, hence affecting the ability of government to borrow money in the future times. So that is why it is such an important event as far as India is concerned. But also during this time you'll find that various news articles and newspapers are filled with deluge of information, covering detailed analysis, information and op-eds which are filled with various details and analysis of union budget. And naturally, this kind of deluge in information, it overwhelms and has the potential to even scare the aspirants who are preparing for UPSC exam. So that is why in coming days, we are going to provide you with detailed analysis of the union budget and also the economic survey, which is presented a day before the budget. And also will provide you with everything that is necessary for you to attempt this year's prelims and mains examination. So let me deal with the relevance of budget for UPSC prelims and mains examination. From the board behind me, you can see questions have appeared on budget in both prelims and mains examination. Let us start with prelims examination. In the year 2015, you saw a question directly appeared on which kind of a department is responsible for drafting the annual budget and its related constitutional provisions. So such an article is important from polity perspective. Also, another question appeared in the following year, that is 2016, which highlighted what are the following are included in the capital budget. So therefore, this became important from the economy syllabus. Also, this question appeared in 2020 that alongside budget, finance minister also places what other kind of documents which are mandated or are called as macroeconomic framework statement. So this is actually due to provisions of Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, as this is an act by the Parliament which mandates certain kind of documents that should be presented alongside union budget or the annual financial statement every year. So this was how such kind of a budget and its related provisions, they are important from prelims perspective. Now let us deal with the importance of budget from the UPSC mains examination. As you can see in the years 2017 and 18, questions have directly appeared on analysis of budget that were presented before the exam. Also in the year 2021, a straightforward static question appeared on what are the components of the union budget, that is differentiate between capital and revenue budget. So that is why not just the analysis of the budget, but also the static portions that force the government or that mandate the government to present the budget every year, it is important from exams perspective. So from that logic, let us start our today's discussion by understanding what kind of different documents are mandated to be presented by the government alongside the union budget. Now, Article 112 of the Indian Constitution presents that the union government should present annually the annual financial statement into the floor of the Indian Parliament, and that should enlist the expenditures as well as receipts the government is expecting in the upcoming financial year. So therefore, in every budget, three kinds of years or three kinds of estimates and receipts are presented for three different financial years. For example, this year's budget will be called as budget for the year 25-26, and this is going to provide budget estimates for the financial year 25-26, which is the next financial year, the revised estimates for the current financial year, that is 2024-25, as well as actuals of the previous financial year, that is 2023 and 24. So these three data of these three financial years will be presented alongside this year's budget, which is going to be presented on 1st of February 2025. And it will primarily deal with government finances relating to the next financial year, that is the year 2025 and 26. Also, Article 113 of the Indian Constitution, it states that any expenditures which is made by the government from the Consolidated Fund of India, it needs to be presented to the Lok Sabha, and this presentation needs to be made in form of demand for grants. So we understood annual financial statement or the budget, it is presented along as per the provisions of Article 112, whereas the demand for grants, which is actually the ability of government to withdraw the fund from the Consolidated Fund of India, is actually mandated under Article 113. And as a result, you understand, because government, if it has to make certain kind of expenditures, it would need the money to be taken out from the government expenditures or the exchequer. And for that, it needs the permission of Lok Sabha. And that is why this permission is presented in form of demand for grants. And usually, each and every ministry, they have a separate grant for each of them. But there are cases when expenditures are quite a lot. Then there is a chance that one ministry may have more than one grant. Also, the preparation for budget of union territory is also the responsibility of union government. So that is why demand for grant of each and every union territory is performed or is presented separately. So there were more than 100 grants or demands for which that were made by the union government in previous financial year. So this was done according to Article 113. Now we dealt with how government is going to spend money from its own accounts. That is only after it gets permission through demand for grants by the Lok Sabha. But on the other hand, government also needs to earn money. For that, there is an finance bill. And this finance bill gives government the opportunity to levy more taxes, abolish existing taxes, or even alter the provisions of existing taxes so as to allow it to earn revenue from the different sources. And this is usually presented in a form of money bill, which deals with or which is dealt under Article 110 of the Indian Constitution. So these three heads, that is annual financial statement, demand for grants and financial bill, they are usually made under the various provisions of the Indian Constitution. That is Article 112 for annual financial grants, Article 113 for demand for grants, whereas Article 110 deals with the provisions of money bill, which is a form of finance bill. Understood? Now there was this another law which was passed by the Indian Parliament called as Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management, abbreviated as FRBM Act of the year 2023. And this act mandates that there should be two kinds of documents that the union government should present alongside the annual financial statement every year. First, it is macroeconomic framework statement, which provides government the ability or it provides government the opportunity to present its own assessment of how the growth prospects of the economy would be like in the upcoming years. Also, the government estimates what kind of GDP growth it is expecting in the next financial year. What would be the state of finances as far as its physical ability is concerned. And also, what would be the stability of India's external sector would be like. Whereas, the medium-term financial policy cum fiscal policy strategy statement, it provides the government 3 years rolling targets of various fiscal indicators with relation to India's GDP. For example, fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, primary deficit, taxes and non-taxes revenue, and also the state of central government debt. All of these figures are presented for a 3-year-old basis under the fiscal policy strategy statement. And as we saw, the first 3 documents are presented because the constitution is mandating the government so. Whereas the fourth document, which is a sum of 2 documents, are presented under the section 3 of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management or FRBM Act of the year 2023. Whereas the documents from 5th to 11th, These are a form of explanatory documents which are presented by the government so as to explain the budget in a much better manner to the common public as well as to the media. So these are the sum of documents that are presented alongside the union budget, which is usually given by the Union Finance Minister on the 1st of February. Now, if you'll recall Article 112, instead of also highlighting the need for annual financial statement, it also states that the government should distinguish the expenditures made under the revenue account from all the other expenditures, which means that the government, it usually divides its expenditures and receipt on two different accounts. The first is revenue account and the another one is the capital account. So let us try to understand the difference between revenue as well as capital account. First are the accounts made under revenue budget, which includes both revenue receipts as well as revenue expenditures. Whereas on my right is the capital budget, which includes budget of receipts as well as expenditures made under the capital account. Now, revenue account, it deals with receipts which are non-redeemable in nature, which means that it does not create any liability on the government, or that the government is not required to pay these kind of receipts in the future. And the examples of these receipts, they include various sources of tax revenue like GST, income tax, corporate tax, etc. Whereas other non-tax revenues such as interest receipts, dividends and profits from PSU, user charges, external grants, or the fees which the government levies on provision of its various services, all of these constitute or are the examples of revenue receipts. Whereas the revenue expenditures are concerned, these are also the expenditures which are recurring in nature. For example, salaries, pensions which the government provides to its own employees, or the interest payments it makes on loans, or grants which it extends to states, all of these are examples of revenue expenditure. Now let us understand what are the capital expenditures. Now these are the receipts which have the ability to create liability for the government, or it reduces the existing financial assets of the government. For example, if the government is taking any loans, the receipts of these loans are categorized under the revenue budget, because you understand, if the government takes any loans currently, it has to pay back it after a certain future. Also, any loss in financial assets for the government or reduction in financial assets, such as the proceedings if it tries to sell its stake in PSUs, or recovery of loans that it has extended to various governments, that also are a part of capital expenditure or capital revenue. Whereas considering the capital expenditures is concerned, these are non-recurring in nature. For example, government spends a lot of money on creation of new infrastructure or creation of new assets. For example, laying of roads, new railway lines, or extending loans to states. All of these are examples of capital assets, and these, it increases the assets of the government, and hence these are examples of capital assets. So you understood, any kind of expenditures which is recurring in nature, that government has to make it periodically, for example, payment of interest, payment of salaries and pensions to its employees, all of these are part of revenue budget. Whereas capital budget is concerned, all of these spendings which the government makes in creation of new infrastructure or assets, or it extends loans to other government, all of these are part of capital budget. Understood the difference? Now let us try to understand what are the various stages in which the budget is passed in the Indian Parliament. Now, the passage of the budget, the exercise of budget, it usually starts with the presentation of budget, which is made in form of speech by the Union Finance Minister. Now, the Union Finance Minister first of all gives her speech in the Lok Sabha, which is followed by a speech in Rajya Sabha, and this highlights the presentation of the budget. Immediately after the budget is presented, from the next working day or so, there is a process of general discussion which happens on the floor of the House. Now, this discussion, it pertains to the usual principle of what the government is following for this year's budget, and also the larger picture, it is discussed on the floor of the House. But you have to understand, no cut motion is passed during this phase of general discussion. Now this usually lasts for a period of 3 to 4 days following the presentation of the budget in the floor of the House in form of speech. Now after the general discussion happens, what usually happens is the Parliament is adjourned for a period of about 3 to 4 weeks. And in this process, when the Parliament is adjourned, the departmental related standing committees, it analyzes in great detail the various projects or provisions of the union budget, and it considers whether the demand of grant is actually liable or logical or not. So these departmental related standing committees, which are more than 30 in numbers, these consider in great detail each and every aspects of the budget, and accordingly, after its analysis, it presents reports of these budgets. And after these reports are prepared by the departmental related standing committees, then they are presented into the floor of the House, which after the reconstitution votes in great detail for their demand for grants. And in this process, the floor of the House, particularly the Lok Sabha, it has the option to advocate for any reduction in the demand for grants, whether the House feels that the government has made extra provision or is spending more money than what is required. The House, particularly the Lok Sabha, has the power to recommend or bring cut motion which will reduce the expenditures of the government. And these demand for grants in form of their detailed analysis along with reports, these are presented on the floor of the House, and it is the power of Lok Sabha to vote or to reject any grant in general. Whereas the power of Rajya Sabha is concerned, it can only discuss the provisions of budget. However, it cannot vote or reject the demand for grants, and it is the exclusive power of Lok Sabha whether to vote, that is pass or reject the demand for grants. Now after every demand of grant is voted upon by the Lok Sabha, it is then presented to the floor of the House in form of appropriation bill. Because according to Indian Constitution, no tax can be levied on the people of India without the permission of Parliament, and for that the assent of Parliament is a necessary form of event as far as passage of budget is concerned. So all of these grants put together, they are made in a form of appropriation bill, which is then presented to the floor of the House, and it is voted or rejected accordingly by the Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. So this deals with the revenue or this deals with the expenditure part of the budget. Understood? Now what about the income part? You understand, to spend money, the government will have to earn money. So for that, the various provisions of abolition of existing taxes, introduction of newer taxes, and alteration in the existing taxes, these are dealt with the financial bill, which is a form of money bill. And this money bill is presented on the floor of the House, and you understand it is the primary responsibility of the Lok Sabha as it is introduced there, and after passage in Lok Sabha, it is presented to Rajya Sabha, where the Rajya Sabha has an option to suggest for amendments. However, it is not mandatory for the Lok Sabha to consider this amendment, and irrespective of whether the suggestion has been given or not, this money bill is passed by the Indian Parliament. After 14 days, it is presented into Rajya Sabha. So this deals with the income side of the budget, that after passage of financial bill, the government has the ability to levy taxes, which deals with the income side of the budget. And after both appropriation bill and finance bill has been passed by the Parliament, we say that the budget has been passed by the floor of the House. Now usually, earlier as the budget was presented before the end of February, it made the favor that the budget usually, or the approval of budget, it usually extended way beyond the start of next financial year, because you understand the government wants to spend money from the April 1st itself. However, if the passage of budget is delayed even after 1st of April, there was this provision called as vote of accounts. As this vote of accounts, it enabled the government to take advances from the Union Parliament, and this advance, it was provided to the Union government for a part of about 2 months of expenditures or about 1/6 of the total estimate of expenditures it made alongside every budget. However, since earlier from 2017 onwards, we have seen the trend that instead of last of February, the budget is now presented by the Union Parliament in the 1st of February itself. And that is why by earlier presentation of the budget, the government is intending to pass the budget even before the start of next financial year, hence doing away with the need of vote on accounts. So this is the basics of how budget is presented every year, what kind of documents are presented alongside the budget, and also what are the various stages through which the budget is passed in the Indian Parliament. Understood? So this was all from my side as a precursor for the budget, and please do not afraid of the various details that come in therein. We'll be discussing each and every aspects of the budget and economic survey in the upcoming videos on our YouTube channel. So until then, please keep watching, and if you have not, please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more such important updates.